And then hopefully, okay, looks like we may be live. Always wait for the chat to kind of dictate whether or not they see us. Let me actually type that in. Everyone hear us? Hello to everybody in the chat?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, all right. Looks like people are excited, they see you. All right, here we go. Take it away.
Everybody. Hey, thanks everyone for spending time today. I'm excited about this. I've spent a huge percentage of my life with Duke, working on Duke, thinking about Duke, and I know that that's probably also true for a lot of the folks that are participating in this. So, of course, my perspective is a little different because my seat is what it is. But the thing that I'm hoping to get out of this the most is perspective. I kind of want to learn. Now, I know that a lot of the people involved in this, some of the folks that are watching the chat and the folks that I'm talking with might want to have questions answered, and I'm sure we'll do a lot of that. And also might want to try to influence things, and that's fine. I'm open to influence. I'm actually eager for influence. But the thing that I'm most interested in getting out of it is perspective and learning, and also perhaps sharing my perspective. There's a lot of things I'm juggling when I deal with the things that I have to deal with. And when I'm on the outside of the situation, oftentimes I can see what look to be poor decisions, but when I learn what's going on inside of the situation, I discover that those are actually good or necessary decisions. They might just be having a longer range view or a different range view than what I was worrying about in the moment. And maybe through this interaction, we can start to understand one another and care about what we all are in it for. And at the end of the day, what we're in it for is we love interactive entertainment. We want to have joy and happiness. And we think Duke might be a part of that, and it's certainly been a part of that for our past. And we hope that Duke can be a part of us finding joy and happiness in our entertainment in the future. I don't know where you guys want to begin, but I will also say this. I know there are so many different things to talk about. There's been a lot of different projects. There's dreams about a lot of different possible things that could happen. If we spend too much time on any one thing, we will go down a rabbit hole and then we might miss other topics. So I recommend that we kind of, when we start in on a topic, we have a discussion about it. We cover it for a bit, let ourselves get into it. But if we discover that we're getting too far into the weeds or that we've spent too much time on the topic, that we let ourselves move on to another one and trust that if we run out of topics, we can come back over those things that deserve more attention. I do not think we'll run out of topics. I think we're going to have plenty of things to talk about. In addition, I will say that this is the last thing that I booked for today, so I'm willing to go as long as these folks are happy to sit here with me. At some point, I might have to go to the bathroom, but we're all here.
Likewise.
But I'm a little bit on the spectrum, so I suspect that once I get into it, I'll just go until someone pulls the plug.
I saw in the chat someone asked if we should probably do a quick introduction. Everyone knows who Randy is, but
I think that's a good idea.
Who you guys are? Richard, would you like to start out?
Well, I am the creator of eDuke 32. Done a lot of other Duke-related projects throughout the years. Helped run Duke4.net.
Cool. Did we lose you, or was that it?
I think most of the people here probably know who I am.
Cool. Yatta.
All right. So my name is Robert. I go by Yatta on the forums. I created Duke4.net back in 2004 because I'm the hugest Duke Nukem fan. And I'm very excited to try and flesh out some of the questions that the community had for Randy. So I look very much forward to having this discussion with you guys. And Fred, go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Fred. I have a company called SlipGate nowadays, and then I run 3D Realms with my partners. The company originally behind Duke Nukem, and yeah, I know you guys as well from the Duke forums, and Randy and I have known each other for I think five plus years now. So that's me. Cool. Well,
all right.
Let's get started here. Yeah, we had a quick conversation earlier about what topics we would love to start out with, and I think what every Duke fan wants to know is just a quick overview of what the current plans are from your perspective. If you have any kind of plans for a new Duke Nukem game in the future, a new AAA title, and if you could maybe talk a bit about what your thoughts are.
Well, it's big picture wise, and I've said this before. I did not, strap on the bulletproof vest and jump in front of all the bullets of the franchise just to make sure that DNF was able to come out. I believe that Duke is an awesome character and an awesome franchise, and I believe that Duke deserves a big future. And I found myself in a position where I was without question, I was in the best position to help that future happen. And I have to make that future happen, or else I've failed. Right now, up to this stage, I've basically paid into it, and moving forward, what has to happen is to create something and create value with Duke. Now, the master plan, I can't get into details that are going to risk upsetting things that are going on. For example, with a AAA video game, right now, expectation management is everything. And if maybe there's one thing we can all agree on, the thing that probably hurt Duke Nukem Forever more than anything else was making a promise about what the thing was going to be before that was a certainty, and before the path to the market was a known thing. So it's very, I think, critical, especially for Duke, that no promises are made until the certainty of being able to deliver on that promise and to actually exceed the expectation set is already in hand. And that's just for the effort that I'm going to be involved in. Now that said, I am part of, to achieve this, from a master plan point of view, time is the enemy for any franchise. So it's going to be important, not merely for me to craft that end and to not even talk about it until we have it in hand and are certain we're going to exceed the expectations we set. But however long it takes to get there, we have to be careful about Duke's relevancy drifting. And so it's important to have opportunities for Duke to continue to be relevant in not just in the gaming community, but in the larger pop culture. Now, there are some things that I can talk about on that front. I am very happy, in fact, eager to have Duke Nukem licensed to folks that have good ideas about what to do with Duke and can actually execute on those ideas. I'm most excited about people and entities that are capable of delivering on what they say they can do and exceeding the expectations they set, and have the resources to actually deliver. One of the probably the biggest things that I can talk about right now along those lines is a deal that I did with Warner Brothers that allowed Duke Nukem to appear in Steven Spielberg's upcoming film Ready Player One as a cameo. And if you've read the book Ready Player One by Ernie Klein, which is an outstanding book, I highly recommend it. It posits a future where everyone spends all of their time in what is essentially a video game. Now, Ernie uses the premise of virtual reality and imagines that everyone's connected to a headset and is spending time in this place that was created by this genius called the Oasis. And the genius that created the Oasis has died, and he's created a game within the Oasis that the winner of the game will inherit the Oasis and all of its value and all of its fortune. And because the Oasis permeated all of society in this future that Ernie's imagined, the creator is in fact the wealthiest person on the planet, and obviously has the most influence on the planet. Now, what's fun about the story and what will be fun about the film is this creator was obsessed with popular culture from the 80s and the 90s, and the game that he's created, the contest that he's created, involves all of these things. Now, when I talked with Warner Brothers initially about the arrangement, they told me that Stephen had created a list of about 30 intellectual properties that were important to have represented in this film as part of this important time in popular culture, and Duke Nukem was among them. And so I was happy to do that deal. Now I'll say that that was a deal. You have Warner Brothers, and you have Steven Spielberg, and you have Ready Player One with Ernie Klein, who I know, who's an incredible author, his story, which is a great story. I had tremendous confidence that these guys would do it right. And so I did the license, and this is a license that Gearbox isn't paid for. We didn't do this for profit. We did this to help Duke have that appearance and to be relevant there. And now we're working on an extended license, a new license with those guys, so that they could use Duke Nukem in the marketing of the film too. So Duke Nukem will appear in the trailers and so on, along with a lot of other pop culture characters. And my understanding is that Duke Nukem is actually an avatar in the Oasis. Somebody will be pretending to be Duke and be walking around as Duke in the Oasis. And it's a cameo scene. It's not a major character, but I'm excited about that. And it's evidence. It's evidence of how important Duke is, right? Warner Brothers did not call me asking for Borderlands. They did not call me asking for Brothers in Arms. They did not call me asking for any of the other things that we have or are involved with. It was Duke Nukem, and certainly Duke Nukem is the most famous character that I have the strange responsibility of being a custodian of. So I was really excited about that and happy to do that deal.
I'm leading into that. You're talking about basically licensing IP. In this instance, Warner Brothers. Duke Nukem has a history of a lot of great partners in terms of licensing. We have all titles like Time to Kill, Zero, and so on. Is this, in terms of the future of the Duke Nukem games, something that you guys are further considering further down the line, licensing out the Duke Nukem IP to?
I'm open to licensing for games, but I'm not racing at that as a strategy. I liked some of the Duke Nukem games. I mean, I understand that when Duke Nukem was being both worked on inside of 3D Realms and licensed to other parties, during that period of time, I was a developer inside of 3D Realms. I was level designing and a tiny bit of coding, but working on the games inside of 3D Realms. And as one of those developers, I kind of have, I will confess, I'm not totally objective about these efforts, and I have kind of mixed feelings about it. And I want to be careful about that. And how it affects my decisions right now. At the time, the things that we felt like we did within the games, and I worked on Duke 3D and Shadow Warrior during that period of time, of the things that shipped, that was like the best example of what was possible. Now, as developers, we always felt like we were constantly having to compromise. We were dealing with the limitations of technology. Our dreams as artists are always perfect and wide, right? But the reality of manifesting things, and you know this, Frederik, you've now built things. We can envision things at a much faster rate than they can be manifested. Creating is challenging and difficult, and it's painful because when we actually make, the result never lives up to what we dream it to be. But we still come to a result, and sometimes we're proud of it. We loved Duke Nukem. We played Duke Nukem inside of 3D Realms, and this is not always the case. Most of the time in my career, when I dive in and I spend an absurd amount of time, like it's just unreasonable how much time game developers dedicate to the craft. When we spend that time we don't always come out on the other side where we even like what we created. But with Duke,
I would also throw in that for as much time as we spend creating something, for the majority of that time, it's not even a.
Oh.
Oops, looks like we lost Richard there.
I think he was going to say, for the majority of the time, it sucks, basically, because the game isn't finished at the beginning. The game is finished at the end. And the process from beginning to end is trying. Hey, I'm noticing a chat over here. I haven't actually read anything in the chat, but I see somebody commenting about shit posting. Are we able to moderate this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think in terms of the questions, what we collect, 99% of what people probably want to ask, who are fans of Duke Nukem at least. And I see a ton of these questions being repeated over here as well. Yatta, you wanted to follow up a bit?
Well, let me touch on this licensing thing one more time that you asked about, Frederik, because we met when you didn't approach, actually. You announced that you were doing basically a mod or using Unreal Engine to recreate Hollywood Holocaust, and the project was called Duke Nukem Reloaded, and that's when I first discovered you. And when somebody else brought that across my desk, and at that point we had literally just finished our deal with George and Scott and 3D Realms, and that deal incidentally was about, I mean, those guys, right? I don't think that, to rewind the clock a little bit, I don't think that George and Scott, looking back, would be able to defend every decision they made over the time that Duke Nukem Forever started and when they closed their doors as being perfect decisions. So I don't see any value in beating them up over that. But I do know for certain that when they made the decision to close those doors and to lay everybody off at 3D Realms, that was probably the worst day of George's life. And
definitely. And Joe especially, Joe talking about here.
Joe didn't make the decision. He had to accept it, and Joe was obviously surprised and crushed. Joe sort of believed that this would always be there for him.
Yeah.
That moment though proves a very harsh reality, which is, as entertainers, we have to be able to create more value than what we spend to do it. If we spend more than we make, we will go out of business. And then the dream ends and everything stops. But if we can make as much or a little bit more than what we spend, then we can keep going. If we make as much as we spend, we can do basically the exact same thing again. If we make a little more than what we spend, then we can try harder and do something a little bigger and better. But the dream of every game creator that's a true game creator, and I count myself among them, is not to try to get rich off the thing. It's to enable us to create more things. My dream does not involve retiring on a beach somewhere. I could have done that years ago if that was my ambition. My mission is to, I think I was genetically built to try to create entertainment and to give other people experiences. My wife thinks that my issue is that we have empathy, right? And when we experience, say, something that makes us laugh, a part of our brain will light up. A weird phenomenon that humans have, if you connect us, say, to an fMRI, which can detect how our brains work and we can see parts of our brain in real time. Let's say you connect someone up to an fMRI and you make them laugh, a certain part of their brain will light up. Or if you make them experience pain, like prick the finger with a pin, another part of their brain will light up. And if you have that same person that's still hooked up to the fMRI and they watch someone else laugh, the same part of your brain will light up. And if they watch someone else experience pain, that same part of the brain will light up. That's what empathy is. Some people have negative empathy, like sociopaths. They can watch someone else experiencing pain all day long, and they won't They won't feel anything from it. My wife believes that I have the opposite. I generally am kind of even keel. I tend to live in like a 7 and 8 range of happiness. But when I see someone else that's totally freaking stoked, I actually get more of a high, get more of a response from that than even when I'm experiencing the same thing myself. And I think that's what led me to being a creator. I have fun with the things like, oh, I can do that. Maybe I can do a little better and give it to somebody else, and somebody else can have that. George has that. George wants to be loved, and he wants to create joy for other people. And his dream was to go bigger and bigger and bigger. And unfortunately, they ran into a wall. They ran out of runway, and he had to lay all those people off. And as a consequence of that, there was a huge amount of cost. There's unfulfilled promises, right? Everybody that's been part of Duke4.net since DNF was announced, since Duke4.net was created, was dreaming about the promise of what Duke 4 could be. And in that moment, it was all gone. It was all destroyed. So that sucks. In addition, there's business that was depending on that. Like George and Scott immediately found themselves under siege of a lawsuit from Take-Two. And they would say it's a bullshit lawsuit, but Take-Two had invested and had expectations of getting a result from that. And they have an obligation to their shareholders and themselves, and that's part of the machine, love it or hate it, it's part of the machine. And so I found myself in the seat where, wow, I can actually fix this, and jumped in for that. You'll remember though, Frederik, when I just was in this spot, now it's like, okay, now I'm the one being sued by Take-Two. I haven't solved that problem yet. I have this game that's been cobbled back together but has no path to market and doesn't work on consoles and has no multiplayer component. That's DNF. And I have an obligation now. I've taken on all the obligations to deliver that, and I've inherited the lawsuit. I also discover later, oh crap, the technology license is not real, it's a mess, and there's money owed there, and there's people coming out of the woodwork, like there's just all these problems. And in that moment, someone brings across my desk your work, Frederik. And at the time, I was still, I was super deferent to George and Scott, and I asked them, I said, hey, what would you guys do with this? And the first response that George and Scott offered was, you gotta fox it, shut them down. It's a distraction, it's a mess. And I'm like, fuck, I'm just now responsible for this franchise. And these guys are just, they're young, they're up and coming, and they love Duke, and they just wanna make something cool. And now I actually have the responsibility to decide. And so what I recommended was, what if we don't shut it down? What if we give Frederik a legitimate license so that he can make this mod as a non-commercial fan effort? And that's what we did together. We did that deal. And I will do that deal again. I'll also do deals for commercial efforts. I think where you got disappointed, Frederik, was you'd hoped that the initial work there would have inspired us to want to invest in you and in that product. And I think that you kind of needed that in order to reach the finish line. But I never understood that, nor did I have the means for that. I was dealing with the enemy at the gate just to have enough fuel to cross the finish line with DNF and to keep myself from getting crushed under all of the other burdens on that. That said, if you or if anyone that's capable of delivering on a promise with Duke and has a good promise to make, I will absolutely work with them to do a license for that, and I'm happy to do that.
Speaking of licenses, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and go back to talking about the future and you're being open to license out the rights to the IP for other developers to work on it, but also perhaps Gearbox itself. I was kind of going to try to ask a couple quick questions in that regard. The first being is if Gearbox itself has any plans to make any AAA games with Duke, or if you have plans to license out the IP to other developers like Devolver, SlipGate, MachineWorks, just off the top of my head, any of these guys who've done Duke-related games before, if that's also on the table.
So anyone who approached Gearbox with looking for a license, we've entertained and had an interaction with, and anyone that we felt is capable of executing, we've done a deal with. Now that said, here's the reality. If we really want Duke to have a future, small video game projects are not going to truly create that future. If we want Duke to have a big future, we're going to have a big pitch. We need a massive AAA game, and it has to be great. I've spent a lot of time talking with a lot of developers about that game, and we've worked on that a lot inside of Gearbox. I don't think we've cracked the nut, and the whole nut includes the concept, which is story style and design, and it also includes how it's going to be developed, the team itself, and then it requires the market and the ability to deliver to market. So I've internally at Gearbox ran that around, and I think we've gotten pretty close. I've ran that around with a whole bunch of really incredible developers. I don't want to mention any of them, but you know, there are some independent developers that you could imagine might be able to do something really cool with Duke if they had a chance. And I've had conversations with those developers, and I mean, in some cases, some of them have invested many man weeks, man months, in fact, in concept and ideation with me. And some of those concepts, both internal and with third parties, I believed are worth betting on. Gearbox, as we stand, is not capable of independently investing 50 to 100 million in development on a Duke Nukem game, and also having 50 to 100 million to market, distribute, and publish that game. We're not at that scale yet. So to do something of that scale requires a publishing partner or some investment. So I've had those conversations as well. And it's been challenging, but I continue. Now, in the meantime, I'm also doing things that might eliminate my dependency on other parties, right? By creating Gearbox Publishing, and by starting to publish games and build that up, I foresee a future where like, and this, I hope we can do something before this future, but there's an inevitable future where we are not dependent upon anyone to do the big, massive Duke Nukem game that it deserves. And that's when we can execute on publishing and development, and we don't need anyone else in order to execute on both fronts.
I think that's also the right path to take. You know, the worst you could do is start rushing it to find a developer or develop it inside, and it needs to be done right this time. And you know, Duke Nukem Forever was kind of the Half-Life 3 before Half-Life 3, and whatever comes next for Duke has to be right, as you said. It has to be big, and it has to be great first and foremost. And you know, it's better to take your time on that. At least
it does have the advantage though, where the expectations for DNF were impossibly high.
Yeah.
I believe the game was 7. I believe DNF was like a 7 out of 10, which would have been fine given the conditions of what DNF was dealing with. That actually would have been a great result. But because everybody expected a 10, and you deliver a 7, you get hit punitively, and you get the result of that from you delivered a 7, but I wanted a 10. So that gap of 3, that actually gets subtracted from the 7, and everybody calls it a 4.
I feel like they expected a 14, one for every year of development.
Yeah, you know, I think
that's funny, and that's probably more accurate. Yeah.
I think it was a good thing that we got to see a version of Duke Nukem Forever instead of not seeing anything at all, and it was great that
the urban legend it became, and the historical, you know, artifact that it became, it was important. But again, now you have the upside now, because people's expectations are now low again. So, you know, besides creating a great game, people don't necessarily expect the next Duke Nukem game to be, you know, a masterpiece, because a lot of the people who, you know, are waiting for Duke Nukem games and who will play the next Duke Nukem game might be the first game they play in the series, because it's been so long since Duke Forever. So you know, right now you have the upside there, and that's why, you know, I think it's really great that you guys are taking your time and not trying to rush out a new game and a new developer just because people are hungry for a Duke Nukem game.
So with licensing, the easiest path to keep Duke culturally relevant in a no-risk way is for all the non-game licensing to happen. And there's actually been some exciting developments there, on the movie front. And I believe and there's actually a much bigger story unfolding with movies where, like, I've been working hard on a legitimate, you know, studio film with Duke Nukem with the right producers, and I've had a number of people over the years come after it, and you know, it's important to get that right. But getting that deal done and seeing that come to fruition, I think will change the profile entirely. There's also other kinds of licensing, you know, like apparel and toys, and I did a board game deal, and this will keep Duke relevant without having the expectation risk of what the video game is. And it will let Duke be a character in popular culture without having to depend upon kind of the low-hanging fruit carrying it, because frankly, you could do the best job imaginable with Duke Nukem, and if you're only going to be able to spend, say, $1 million in development and $1 million in marketing, there's a ceiling you cannot cross. It's just the unfortunate. I mean, you might win the lottery. You might win the lottery. I mean, Minecraft won the lottery, for example. But the challenge is the people that are kind of coming to Duke for a license, they don't have the lotto win. They want Duke Nukem to signal boost them, because otherwise they wouldn't get the attention that Duke would bring. If they had it without Duke, they wouldn't need Duke, and they would just have their game stand on its own merits. So it's a tricky problem on those kind of low budget kind of license deals. I'm open to them. I will absolutely let anyone that can execute and can punch, that has any hope of punching above the weight class, have a license for Duke.
How do you feel, Randy, about having a Duke Nukem game like Doom 2016?
I thought, so let's look at Doom 2016. That was a great game. I really liked it, and it makes that franchise viable. But here's the hard truth about that. There was a time in video game history when Doom was the most important thing there was. Right? It was one of those I mean, you know, Rolling Stone author wrote a book about it. It changed video games, right? Doom 2016 did not do that. It cannot and would not restore Doom to that level.
But it didn't need to. That's also the question.
Yes, and look what that took. Look what that took, right? Bethesda had to bet, and they probably spent somewhere between $50 and $75 million in development, times 2 for marketing and distribution, manufacturing, and all that. And when they bet that, that's not a sure thing, right? A similar bet was placed on Prey, for example. Completely different outcome. You don't get to know how it's going to come out when you bet. I think bets like that are worth taking, but here's the thing. If Doom 2016 would have posted the results that Prey did, then that's the end of that franchise. And that, to me, if I let that happen, to Duke, then I have not done anyone any service. So the right answer for the next Duke game, that's a big Duke game, it's actually a play and actually a bet, it may not achieve this, but it has to have a chance of actually changing things, of actually making Duke relevant on the same level that he was when he was on top. And Duke didn't get there just by being a great game, by being an interesting character. Duke 3D truly innovated. It offered something that we have not experienced yet in video games, and it brought something on a whole new level.
But do you think that specific, or do you think Duke's just what Duke?
I can't quite hear you. Say that again.
Oh, do you believe that Duke needs that, or do you believe that a Doom 2016 situation would be good enough?
I think a Doom 2016 situation would be great. My point was, when you make the bet at the beginning, you can't be sure that that's what you're going to get on the other side.
Yeah.
And if you make the bet at the beginning, and instead of ending up with Doom 2016, you end up with Prey 2017, you just shot it in the head.
Mm.
And so that's the challenge, right? So when Doom 2016 is being bet on, it's a very similar problem, right? Because okay, it's a first-person shooter and it's got this environment, and they made a really fun game. They didn't revolutionize anything. There were some elements they hoped might be the thing that pushes it over the edge, like the ease in which someone could use the tool to kind of make their own map, kind of. But it turned out that didn't matter as much, right? It turned out that didn't change the game. The innovations they made were subtle, and that's the workspace we're in now, right? You either make a big, bold, this is something you've never seen before, in which case you're taking a massive risk, or you're doing these little subtle tweaks to a genre, in which case you risk not having an impact that extends wide enough. I think there is a game that's out there, and this is where I've been attacking it. I think there is a game out there where it's like, holy crap, if that game were to exist, we would all be playing that. That there's this new innovation behind it that truly is amazing. We see it on pitch, and we love it even more in execution. And holy crap, what would be the perfect character that can help that pitch? Duke Nukem.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm searching for. I love the send up. I love the parody. I think there's always room for, hey, here's just a fun romp with the character. And I think those things should exist, and I'd be happy to enable them if other people want to take a bet on them, and I'd love to work on that stuff myself. I don't know how you can ensure that outcome, and I think if you bet too heavy on that and you don't get it, and you don't have other boats in the water, that could be the end of Duke, and that would be the worst decision.
Having a new Duke game could have a lot of implications. There's the financial considerations you mentioned. The AAA game would be $50 to $100 million, and tweaking the character could, in itself, have risks. How do you feel about the more conservative approach that a lot of developers have taken in terms of releasing HD remakes of their classic titles, or even just packaging the titles together and releasing them, be it Duke Nukem Manhattan Project, Duke 64, Duke Nukem.
That's all going to happen. That's all. But that's a nostalgia play. That's not going to keep Duke alive in the future. You can only milk the past for so long. And I'm not really interested in milking. I like having those things because I think that it's nice for posterity to keep the content available and fresh for future platforms. But I always, when I do that stuff, I also would like to contribute something to it. Like World Tour existed because Richard and Alan, Level Lord and Alan Blum were excited to get back into the tools and make something cool, using the traditional development method and make a new, what if there was a 5th episode for Duke 3D? And that's what we did, So, but there was no illusion that you can do that and make Duke on top again with that. We still haven't broken even on that game yet. And that was extremely modest. We did that out of love, right? And then, like, what we need to get a compilation. We're working on that. I think the compilation that's launched should include DNF. I'm working out a deal. I don't have it done yet, but I'm working out a deal with 2K. You have to understand that, 2K Games and Take-Two, they, long before I was ever part of this, they had the publishing rights for Duke Nukem Forever. And nothing's going to change that. And what that means is they have the rights to Duke Nukem Forever. And that means everything, right? Like, technically, I shouldn't even talk about, like, I saw some things that come up about Duke Nukem Forever 2001. I shouldn't even talk about that without consulting with the 2K PR folks, because it's they have all the rights to market and communicate about it.
Right.
That deal was done long before I ever got involved. Now, they don't, I don't think they're deeply engaged in Duke. They don't have any stake in its future. I'll give them opportunity as a courtesy because I think they're great partners. And they are saying they are eager and happy to work with me on, like, recollections or compilations or reoffering the past material. But there has to be a deal there to make that happen, and they have to be party to that. I think that a compilation that includes DNF, that I've done a deal with 2K to get those rights back in there for that. I think that's probably the best vehicle that we might see some of the content from the past of DNF, if anyone's interested in that. I know there's a lot of people interested in that. And by the way,
we have some questions later. Like, we thought we wanted to, end with some of that, because the primary subject of this whole call is the future of Duke Nukem, not the past. So we thought we might end up with that at the end, talk a bit about the old versions. But
talk about that for a minute. I mean, we can cover all the bases. The context there is interesting, right? Like, I think one of the troubles with that content, and I do hope it gets out. I was talking to Alan about this not too long ago. Alan would absolutely, he's represented to me that he would be happy to help people be aware of what's there and to talk about it and host it. He's kind of a shy guy. He's not a showboater. He definitely does not seek attention. But he knows there's sort of a historical curiosity there. The thing that I think everyone should be concerned about is the difference between what I think a lot of people believe might exist or hope exists and what actually is reality. Too many people in our industry, when they see a trailer, they think there's a whole product that already is there. In fact, the only thing that existed was what was necessary to make that trailer work. And
well, I mean, Charlie has thrown in that most of the stuff that people want to see is playable. It's just it's just not a whole game. It's not a whole game.
You kind of already know it's playable because you can watch the trailer, right? But, okay.
But it's also about what version.
It's not 100% scripted sequences.
Yeah, the original, like the 98 build from 1998 is basically the only stuff that's there is what you see in the trailer, and the rest is all hacked together. That's what you expect. It was revealed so close to Atomic Edition anyway, so that's the case there. With the 2001 version, it's quite different. But again, that was under development for so much longer. When they finally scrapped that and moved over to real-time shadows and normal maps and all that stuff. But I think maybe the implications are more, also the legal side of things, as you talked about, Randy. UK owning or having some rights that you can't just put it out there.
It's not even my right to release it.
Exactly, and then there's also all the. There might also be all the personal.
Incidentally, I'm working on that actively.
There's also all the personal info in there. When we went through all the code, there's so many things that you want to strip out. Personal emails and information about people that was on the team back then, and all these things that needs to be cleaned up. It's a lot of work.
I do have a lot of deference to talent, and I think for me, like, that's one of the reasons why I said I started with Alan, because, like, to me, I'm most deferent to him. He has more claim, in my opinion, than anyone. In my opinion, it goes, the world world, Alan, and then like under that are people like George and, you know.
Well, he invented Duke, so, you know, we owe it all to him.
Alan has more claim to Duke than anyone, in my opinion. And you know, starting there, there is stuff that, like we've seen even some of George's reactions, right? Like, and it kills me, right? Because like, DNF now, there's a game that is commercially available, and there's parts of what's happened as a consequence where George himself would say, "Fuck, I wish that never would have gotten out."
Yeah.
Because now some people would have judged that as bad, and I never would have released that. And that's a valid position to take. And there are developers that feel that about all the work in progress. And now you have folks that are wishing to just, you know, dig into this work in progress and judge it, presumably. And if we were to, let's say, you know, I'm doing the work right now. We'll get the permission from 2K. But let's say we stop there and let it happen. We did not go to the creators themselves and get their blessing. There's going to be feelings that are created. Like even in the context, like look at George, right? Like the thing that is DNF that was shipped in the campaign was the same thing that he had in hand before it was transferred to Gearbox. It wasn't on consoles. But that it was when Regal and Blum and all those guys did not give up even after they were fired, and they were working out of their houses for months and months. What they did is they strung everything together and they assembled it into a cohesive piece, and they wrote enough stuff to fill in everything, and they recorded it and they put it all together, and it was there. And at the time, George and Scott were in self-preservation mode, right? They're like, fuck, we have to get Randy to take this or we're fucking dead because we can't afford this lawsuit, we can't afford the hell we're in. And so, you know, in that context, I'm like, and I played it and I thought, like, for me, I'm judging it from the perspective of, you know, I've been outside of 3 runs this whole time. And I thought whatever was going on there must be a complete disaster. Because I know what development hell looks like. I've been in it myself a lot. And I'm like, and instead of a disaster, I'm like, there's some clever shit, man. Like the whole kitchen stuff where Little Duke was fucking amazing.
Yeah, that's burger.
There's just some really amazing shit that I just fell in love with DNF. I literally have nothing to do with. I'm like, this is absolutely incredible. When people discover that this isn't Phantom, that this is actually, they're gonna love this.
I think maybe sometimes a couple of people are probably going to play forever the current version and see it as what it was. You know, it's a 7 out of 10 game that has some brilliant ideas, but because of the extremely high expectations, people just either didn't play it or didn't care too much or hated it. And so I think it's probably going to be one of those hidden gems down the line. But going back to, you know, the old version, when I reached out to you and we sent you what we found, you know, we've been playing around with it as well, and it is crazy to see how big of a difference 10 years makes, because that was a drastically different game, and I think that's what, you know, what the trailer showed was a way more, you know, way more seriously toned game with this badass. It was more Duke 3D than the actual new Duke Forever became. And I think that was what people expected, and that's why they fell so much in love with that particular trailer. It is still one, at least in my opinion, one of the best trailers ever made.
One thing that I'd like to chime in and mention is that even with Duke 3D...
Star Wars Episode 1 had the best trailer ever made?
Yeah, well, it was the exact same trailer, beat for beat. You know, actually, that's the way we made our trailer for our last game was the exact same approach. We found a trailer we loved, and then we cut for cut tried to match it up with our own. But it was a brilliant way it was made. But all that content, you know, I think the fans are extremely happy that you guys are trying to look into it, and you know, whatever comes out of it, whether it's you guys getting to release something the fans can play around with, or if it's just here's some cool videos or some screenshots of what that was back then. I think anything will please the fans. You know, we
Well,
we
I'll
want
take my dream, and I can't promise it yet because there's pieces I have to put together that I can't alone decide upon. But I wish for a definitive compilation of everything Duke ever existent to be included. And to include like bootleg shit, you know, like some of the as much of the behind the scenes stuff as possible.
Yeah.
By the way, even when we produced DNF, and we produced it, we didn't develop it, we produced it. I made sure to invest, you know, that like the limited edition, the art book, and you know, getting everybody to chime in. That stuff's important to me, and I think that stuff deserves to exist. I also think, like, I love the idea of Alan helping with that deep dive, and I'd like to have that be a real production, right? Like, we can do, you know, something like this where Alan just, you know, answers questions with screen grabs. But imagine if there's like a real production with like a produced documentary and like actual access to content that you can dive through yourself. Like, I don't think that's too expensive to make. And I think that we could rationalize that within the context of a package. I will tell you though, I mean, it kind of sucks, man. Like, I thought World Tour was this awesome gift, and you know, and it worked. Like, it did pretty much what we thought it was going to do. But the people that I thought would love it the most shit on me for it. Like,
got a couple questions for you on.
Why the fuck do I want to do any of this if you guys are going to shit on me?
Got a couple questions for you on it. Do you think it's possible, and there will always be people who will like something and not like something, so I understand where you're coming from. I think there were people who appreciated that there was a new episode and that the old team or parts of the old team were getting back together and working on something, and then there may be people who had some criticism to offer. But do you see any more work done being on World Tour in terms of getting Level Lord and Alan back together to make more content for it, or even patches that might address some of the criticism that people may have had on the game?
What criticism? What needs to be addressed to them?
Looking at the poll,
the major things I think was more technical things, like the way the one-liners was recorded they were somehow lower quality, and there were some issues around the game, and then the way the voices were delivered. I'm also reading
look, I mean,
it seems to be, but again,
you got John St. John.
It doesn't really matter. Like, you know, I understand where you're coming from, Randy, because looking at it,
I don't know what to do about that, right? Like, we got John St. John in the booth. He did the best he could. I asked him before, "Are you up for this?" "Yes, I can do it." I asked him after, "How do you feel about it?" "I feel great about it." "How do you feel about your performance?" "It's great." Right? I don't, like, there's just one John St. John. He did the best he could. Like, I saw some criticism. I saw some criticisms. People say like they didn't like his voice. Fuck, I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, it's literally nitpicking. It's basically nitpicking, because, you know, if you look at it as a total product and the fan service that you wanted to do with that, obviously you'll have fans who will never be happy whatever you do simply because it's Gearbox doing Duke stuff. I hate it just because I want to. You know, though they will always be there, and then they will be the ones who you know, yell the loudest. They'll be the loudest voice, and that sucks. And you know, there's a big difference between nitpicking and actual issues. My personal opinion, it was a great product. Like, there were no huge downsides other than a few technical things, like someone mentions in the chat, the sound quality, but that's a technical thing. It's
there was a bug with the gun sounds. There was something about the Jim Doze's original audio engine, and something in the port with you know, we have the Nerve guys helping us with the port on that, and I think something got tweaked with the sound engine. Is that issue still broken, or did that ever get corrected? Does anyone know? You can chime in really quick on the peanut gallery here.
There's a bit of a delay.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of a delay.
Yeah.
If anyone, and when you hear it, if you can tell us if the gun sound, the playback of the sound effects, not the voiceover, the sound effects, was it properly being affected by the 3D sound?
Yeah, someone says it's fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, probably fix it. That was an issue. That was like, oh fuck, I can't believe we let this happen. And I think that one.
That wasn't fixed on consoles though.
Okay, I see that. Okay, I need to look into that. I
There's
know
also a big mouth.
That was a dumb one, and that wasn't that slipped through QA. That should have been on the developers of Nerve. It's one of those little idiosyncrasies because there was a really custom sound engine that took what are standard sound formats but had the extra little tags into them that only if you knew those esoteric tags could you know what to do them. We had Lee involved. He knew all about that for the music. And I think we got it right there, but the sound effect, there was a bug.
The maps were great. The music was great. I think what World Tour failed with was the new enemy and the new boss mainly. Straight up, the new enemy was taken out of a prototype version of Duke 3D, and the new boss was just honestly, it was like a cheap Doom community style recolor of an existing boss. And
Richard, you're also talking from a hardcore fan perspective. You know, the majority of people.
The other option could have been not do those at all. You know, like not have I think the team thought that there'd be value in that, so it felt some variety. The other option would have been to not have anything different, to just use only the existing monster set.
That probably would have been a better choice.
Yeah, and maybe in hindsight they would have made that. The guys in it, you know, one of the other things too is I don't micro and censor. There's a million things that go into every game that I've ever been involved in that I would absolutely do. But my option is I can stomp on and shit on talent, or I can empower talent, just the way I like to be empowered, and that's how we ship. And if we ever want to see something within a reasonable budget, you gotta let stuff happen. Maybe they shouldn't even have done a new boss. They should have just used the existing bosses. I think they thought that might be a cool thing.
I mean, I remember when I was working with them a little bit on it, I think that their time schedule for completing the new enemy was straight up only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
From concept to execution.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems in the game industry today, in my opinion, is that people go and they set the deadline before they've even evaluated how long it's actually going to take to get the work done.
The trick too, though, it's not just that. It's based on the business, and in fact, we fucked it up. Like we thought we modeled it out so that we wouldn't lose money, but in fact, we lost money. We have not yet made money on World Tour. We have lost money on World Tour. So if anything, we spent too much time on that. We spent too much money on that. And so maybe what should have happened is that never should have existed. That boss never should have been thought about, and no time should have been spent on that at all.
I think also, Randy, the market was probably saturated by you know, the people at this point who wanted to get Duke Nukem got it from, you know, first it was re-released on GOG, and then on Steam, and then the Megaton edition.
The product was never about selling Duke Nukem. The product was a vehicle so that we can get the 5th episode.
Yeah, it was for all the people who had Duke Nukem already.
The entire product is rationalized on, holy crap, we have an opportunity where Level Lord and Alan can make the 5th episode that never existed. Holy crap, that's incredible! Like, we're gonna have the 5th episode that never existed. We should have that. And
I want to say I thoroughly respect you saying that you fucked it up. I really respect that.
Which part did I fuck up? I fucked up with some things. I didn't fuck up.
No, you mentioned that with the boss and whatnot that you fucked that up, and
I wasn't a party to that. I think in hindsight you might make a million different decisions. I think at the moment those guys thought, hey, let's have it be something a little different here. Here's how much time we have to spend. Let's do the best we can.
Let's talk about.
They should have just threw in another, you know, Battle Lord or something. Just use one of the ones that already exists.
Let's talk about the future, Randy.
Sometimes when you give hard problems, like ask talent myself, fuck, I built the Area 51 map, the entire fucking map, start to finish. I did that in about 7 days. There was the secret mission in episode 4.
That's one of my. I think that's my favorite map in episode 4.
That's what almost all of the people on the team thought after I delivered it. And I just went into hardcore, like we were out of time. Like that thing had to all be put together because it had to be a holiday title or we were screwed, right? 3D Realms we had these deadlines with manufacturing and all that. And I just went in the tank. And I probably worked like, I maybe slept like 4 hours a night for like 7 days straight. And I got it in before we had to ship. And I don't think it would have been good if you gave me 3 weeks. If you gave me a month and a half, that would have sucked.
There's several other levels in the first 3 episodes of Duke that were made in the same fashion. Particularly in episode 2, there's several that were made in under a week like that, and they came out really well.
Yeah. Also in episode 2, though, a lot of that stuff was Alan's work from back in the day, like some of the earlier stuff.
The bigger levels, the more complex ones, were Alan's work from back in the day, and then the first couple of levels in the episode were the ones that were banged out incredibly quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did the second and third episode like faster than they did the shareware version. It was just banging out the rest of the game. But there's also a thing about working under pressure in general. Some people thrive under it. Me personally, whenever you get into that, you get into the zone because you're forced to be in the zone because you have a deadline.
Just to set the record straight, like I know, and our memory sucks, so I might be, but I'm pretty confident. I played a version of that subway map that Alan had worked on like a year before the show even came out. Some of that alien stuff,
definitely,
was from way back in the day.
I actually have the copies of those maps, and you're definitely remembering correctly.
Okay.
The subway map went through so many different changes all the time.
This is a long time ago, and our memories suck, but yeah.
Maybe talking a bit about going back to the future of Duke Nukem, a pretty big thing and a pretty big point of discussion from the fans' perspective, from specifically Duke 4net, is the characterization of Duke Nukem. Regardless of what we here think Duke Nukem should be like in the future and what he was like, there's a general way that the new Duke Nukem character has been received, and amongst hardcore fans, it's been received pretty poorly. The version that was presented in Forever.
He actually has the nickname Douche Nukem. There's some friction between making Duke Nukem relevant in 2017 or for the future, and also keeping Duke true to his old self, right? So thinking about Duke as he was in Duke Nukem 3D, or the way he was presented in a more serious tone in 2001, and then going to what was shown in Duke Nukem Forever's Ultimate release. And we were wondering how you see Duke's character evolving, Randy, because there's a segment of the press who loves to criticize. There's also a segment of the fans who are happy to see change. And there's the segment that wants to see Duke return to the old 80s, diehard, Arnold Schwarzenegger type of character. And where do you see Duke in the future with these kind of different segments of the community and of fans pulling his character in different directions, and also the desire to keep the character relevant 20, 30 years from the time that the IP and the character was invented?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I think, but before I do, note that it probably doesn't matter what I think, because for the next biggest, most relevant moves for Duke, I'm probably not directing the character myself, right? In the case of the big budget film, it's going to be the director of the film that's going to affect the tone of the character. And in the case of the big budget video game, it's going to be the creative director on the video game that directed it. And it's really unlikely that I'm going to be that creative director. It's very unlikely that I'll be that guy. But I'll be making decisions about who both of those people are. So I'll get to hear their pitches. I think that the Duke of Duke 3D and the Duke that was the people imagined was going to be in forever was George's Duke. And I think there's a lot of good to that tone of Duke. I think that's how I see Duke. When George had to lay everybody off and the team worked out of the houses, they didn't want to give up the dream and they just wanted to see if they can put it all together. The version of Duke that kind of mutated a little bit from George's Duke was what that group, or the people that were doing the things that affected the characterization of it, kind of thought Duke was supposed to be. And that's what happens, right? Someone's kind of driving, and it's what they're going to be. And by the way, I saw a comment fly by that was about the thing that they didn't like was when Duke let the babes be killed instead of saving them. And that was a really important turn in the story. And I remember when I played through a build, probably like 8 or 9 months before it launched, and I got to that moment, and that felt wrong to me too. And by the way, it was worse when I played it. And I had a kind of existential issue there because I don't believe in censoring talent, and I don't believe in artistic censorship in any way. But what I did was I asked different people on the writing team at Gearbox that weren't working on DNF, because DNF was being developed by Triptych, which was the remainder of the 3D Realms guys. And they were actually a separate company, and we did a contract with them so they could, because they had Alan, they had Regal, they had everyone left from the 3D Realms team, right? But I had the Gearbox guys play the game, the writers, and I asked them what they thought. I didn't give them anything, just like, hey, play through it, tell me what you think. And every one of them called out that scene too. That was a really important scene. And I ended up going back. I decided to not, I was very careful. I was like on eggshells, and I went to David and I said, look, this is your game, this is your story. You do what you want. But this part here, you might want to look at and maybe think about it, just because here's the way it looks to a few people. And it did get a little better. Like he was, I can't remember the exact way it was, but he was a just complete asshole to them. Now he's a partial asshole to them. And I think there was a line that was repeated, something he said earlier that was repeated, that I think they hoped that line would put people on thinking Duke had some remorse for that. It was like, I can't remember the line, but I think the tone was kind of along the lines of, those alien bastards are going to pay for screwing up my ride or whatever. He said something along those lines about the girls dying. Before that line didn't exist either. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make that right.
Some people were so upset by that they went as far as to lie about it in reviews.
Yeah, but it's mind's eye, right?
I remember reading at least one where somebody claimed that you were forced to shoot the women yourself to proceed. I think that one was on Ars Technica. I was not happy.
Yeah, but you know what? That got those guys clicks, right? That's what they're in for.
When you had a good point before.
Everyone's just trying to win in their world, right? So those guys, Duke Nukem Forever was a really interesting phenomenon that if you had the right story about it, you're going to get some attention. Like the trailer for DNF, the final DNF, when it was re-announced, got more views on YouTube than the freaking Call of Duty trailer that year.
That was a great trailer as well. It was done really well. Prodigy and everything just fit it perfectly.
I knew that trailer was important. I put a lot of effort into that one myself. That was a really important trailer because that was like the first thing people had seen in a long time. And that was, I was proud of it too. The other thing too,
just quickly going back to the previous question, you bring up a point about the team who took over and continued working on this, had an idea of what Duke Nukem was like instead of making him what he used to be like, and that was this new Duke Nukem. And I think that's primarily where it went wrong in terms of the character. That it felt like a parody of what Duke Nukem was like, even though it wasn't like that way. It wasn't.
Well, yeah, I mean, they made him throw shit.
It's like he was created in 0 Hour and Time to Kill and those third-party titles. That persona was created, but it wasn't the persona people remember. And I remember I like 3-4 years ago at E3, I had a huge discussion with a very well-renowned journalist who hates Duke Nukem. It's the worst ever. And I protected it like all the way through this discussion. This person didn't know what Duke Nukem 3D was even about, like what made it great. All he talked about was, Duke Nukem is sexist, and he says all these terrible things about women, and so on and so forth. What the daily usual press says about Duke Nukem nowadays. But the fact is, Duke Nukem 3D was a completely revolutionary title. It had nothing to do with Duke Nukem as a character. The voices was added like 6-7 weeks before release. The voiceovers for Duke Nukem. The game itself was revolutionary. It was interactive, and it was the first, in my opinion, the first true first-person shooter that led the way for the likes of Half-Life and so on. And when the character was then portrayed in a completely different way, with Duke Forever and later, Bulletstorm World Tour, it was basically the same character. I think that's where a lot of people saw some disconnect, because that's what they've grown used to. Oh, that's the new Duke Nukem, the sexist, Family Guy-esque comedy Duke Nukem, rather than the, here's John McClane from Die Hard. He's funny, but he's in a world where serious things happens. If there's a terrorist attack or an alien attack, it's serious, but he's still tongue-in-cheek. I think personally, at least for me, that's what made Duke 3D, the first one, fantastic. When you saw the first cocooned woman, the alien cocooned woman, you didn't. It wasn't slapstick. This is some deep, serious, scary stuff. It was a pretty scary game for its time. And do you see the future direction for future Duke games go back to that, or do you want to stick with the existing more slapstick Duke Nukem character?
I think that there's a ceiling on the slapstick, so I don't think that's. I think there's always a component of comedy in it, but like here's where it gets muddy with Duke, right? Even in Duke 3D, there's what the character says, there's what the character does, and then there's also like what's in the environment. And tonally, right? Like if you're gonna have if you're gonna have in the environment a flat-out joke, it's baked into the environment. That kind of works in the environment, but now it's part of the property. And so some other creator down the line sees that and goes, oh, that's okay, and then takes that tone and puts it on his voice. And then like those of us that kind of frame his voice in a certain box go, oh, that's not right for his voice, but it's okay over here. And the rules are muddy. It's very soft and hard, but like it's soft in the sense that it's a muddy kind of situation, and it's hard because we kind of have precise lines in our mind, even though it's this muddy thing, right? So it's like an impossible conundrum there. But someone has to, a creator will take a stand, right? So like in the context of a film, let's say there's a Duke Nukem film, and let's say that world-renowned production company and director is behind this. They're going to establish a tone for Duke, and it's probably going to be in some ways the same, familiar with what we expect, but it's also going to be a new kind of push. And you can think about this in the context of like when we see a comic book character, right? Like there are people who pick any comic book character that's been made into an extremely successful film franchise, and you're going to find people that love that character in the comic books long before the movie was ever even dreamed about. That think that the characters become something that they shouldn't have become. But then, if the film does it right, what the true scoreboard is how many people did that film reach, to what extent were they gratified. And anyone making that stuff is gonna have to care just enough about the base, because they know the base is gonna be early adopters, they're gonna either be evangelized or sort of detractors, and they haven't put that line. But it's difficult, man. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think of a film property that I can trust everybody knows, but there's probably not. Like, we can look at the solutions J.J. Abrams had when he rebooted Star Trek, for example. Or we can look at any of the Marvel films. Or we can think about Wonder Woman, which just came out, and it's like all of this stuff kind of moves, but it has to find those connections, right? So it's gonna be about who's leading the charge. I am certain that in a big budget Duke Nukem film or a big budget Duke Nukem game, the tone will change a bit. And I suspect that the tone will be simultaneously wishing to kind of keep the essence of the identity of the character, but make the character a hero for our age. The trick is Duke Nukem going to be a hero or is it going to be a joke?
Yeah.
And I think the most profound fundamental root point is Duke, to succeed, has to be a hero. He can't be a joke. And the trick, I think the challenge is for a lot of people, they can't see Duke as a hero because they've attached Duke to stand for something that they're against. So Duke has to figure out how to evolve to become a hero for everyone. And if he's gonna win, and that's
as part of evolving Duke, Randy, you have very nobly reached out to the community and you've made yourself available. And that's something that a lot of people have appreciated. And in the same vein, do you see a possibility that the Duke Nukem modding community could be involved with future projects in terms of the Duke Nukem spirit of modability, right? So Duke Nukem 3D, build engine mods. Duke Nukem Forever was supposed to have Duke's enormous tool, but of course, the game went through development hell and ultimately no modding tools were included. Do you see future Duke games being moddable, or do you even see maybe Duke Nukem fans collaborating with a third-party licensed developer to work on a UE4 Unreal Engine 4 Duke Nukem game?
I'm game for any of that. I'd love to see tools for any of that. I don't know all the reasons why there's no tools for DNF. I know that there was a point where that was an ambition, and then I think at the end, like I actually probably after this call I'm gonna email Alan about that too. I'm just curious what his take on that would be. I suspect crap, that'd be a lot of work. Also, it's a fucking mess. Like I don't know if any of the Duke Forever developers that shipped it would wish that on anyone.
We could really, we've been playing around with it, and we have some comments at people. But just say the word.
Yeah, I mean, it requires effort to get that out there, and it requires right too. I'm working on the rights. The rights should be all inclusive, so it shouldn't prevent that. Then it's just how does the effort happen? If some of the guys that worked on it that understand it were willing to put the time in, I think that's great. I've always been a proponent of mods. When we do them, it's because I push, and there's people that also believe in it that are part of the development team. For projects that I was a part of, it's easier. Where I'm actually in the trenches, where I can be part of why the things are released. But look, we're in a world where everything happens because people make it happen, and it takes human effort to get to those results, right? So I think the Triptych guys, they had way more. You have to understand that on the day 3 rounds shut down, you had this team of people, and then they immediately scattered, and like a third of them decided to stick around, right, and to keep it going. And they did that. They did that out of their own charity. They weren't getting paid, right? These guys they just could not imagine living their lives if they did not help that see a result, right? So, but now you have a third of the team, and they're trying to accomplish something in a few months that 3D Realms as a much larger entity had not been able to accomplish in 12 years, right? And the miracle is they did it. They absolutely freaking did it. The fact that on top of that, they also did not have the energy to figure out how to release tools to the wild, I forgive them for that. But if any of them are willing to put the effort in now, I'm certain I could sort out the right side of that. That would be awesome.
Love to help out with that. You know, we've been playing around with it. You know, we know the tools in and out. Just say the word. We would be able, at least, you know, able to give a hand.
You're saying you can help? You guys can help with that, Frederik?
Definitely. The level editor, modding tools, so on.
I don't have a budget. I don't have any money for this.
No, like we can work on something and then send you guys for approval if you're up for that. Just as a fan service. That shouldn't be.
Tell you what, let's take this up offline because I don't want to. And by the way, I don't know how this is even going to get out. That's why I'm a little bit careful because, you know, if some of these conversations lead up to the people I'm negotiating with, then it changes the negotiation. So I want to get the rights sorted for including DNF stuff in a future effort. And then with that in hand, I think this can be a part of it.
But talking about this, Rain, there's another question here from the fans, and that is basically in what way you guys are going to be closer associated with the fan community in the future. You know, previously you had your forums with the, you know, your own Duke Nukem subforum. Right now it seems like most of the fans are on Duke Fortnite after your forums was, I think you changed them or shut them down for the Duke Nukem side at least. What are your future plans in order to be closer associated with the fan community besides this fall, obviously?
I think like the trick is I don't want to fall into a trap of, like, I'm pretty high performance. I work a lot and I work really hard, and like interacting on forums can be a black hole of non-productivity. I think we need to figure out concise ways where we can have an interaction and get the value of input without having to have the cost of hours a day on a forum for me to get that. The fact that when I went to the Duke forums and I said, hey, let's try this dialogue, that was my hope. It's like, how do we create some optimized way where I can get the top line without having to invest countless hours into going through all these forums, or I just can't afford to be part of the community, but I want access to what the community is interested in so that can filter into the decision making. If I became part of the community, there'd be even less likelihood that we'd get good stuff because I'd be spending a lot of time there instead of on making shit, right? So it's, you know, there's trade-offs there. I think you know, I don't know, we can see. I think we should assess what we all got out of this after the fact, and then see if we want to do something like this again. Yeah. The other thing is, I think when I'm a fan, I want what I want, and I first want to hear that I'm going to get what I want, and then I want to get what I want to want. Right? But as a creator, I don't want to promise anything unless I'm certain it's going to happen. Because every time, like especially with this franchise, every time it's gotten trouble, it's because promises were, like, checks were written that couldn't be cashed. And so I'll take, you know what, if people want to call me a shit or whatever, like, I think I'd rather be the target than to actually make a promise I can't deliver on. And so I think there's a part of it that's better if I kind of stay away and do what I have to do, and then people, okay, wow, that happened, and that can happen later. It's a tough one though. It's a really tough one. Time is our most rare and valuable commodity on this stuff.
Yeah. So Randy, are there any active Duke Nukem games in development or planned to be in development? And also, with respect to being able to do this as cost effectively as possible, is there a possibility with respect to content that's already out there, you know, in the history books, to negotiate with 2K and give the fans an opportunity to view some of that just for historical purposes?
It depends on what you mean. It depends on how you define development. There is activity. It would be irresponsible for me to talk about any of it.
Okay. I think also what Robert,
so that I make sure I caught it.
Yeah. I think also what Robert meant is in terms of the old builds. You know, if you guys decide to talk with 2K and decide that, all right, you guys want to show something, you know,
so
please.
I think I already addressed that one, right?
Yeah, you did.
I'm working on a license that will allow for a compilation, and I think the compilation is the best vehicle for that. I don't have a path there yet, but I have some angles on that path, right? Alan Blood is excited to do something there. I think, Frederik, you demonstrated that you're excited to do something there. But I think if we do something there, we should do it right and get, like, have it be something that is valuable for posterity. I don't, you know,
and that's
I don't want to just upload a bunch of photos to an Instagram. Like, let's produce something.
What are your feelings on the similar prototype builds of Duke 3D? Now you should have ownership over that stuff, like full in the clear, yeah?
Oh, I think that would be great too. And by the way, Richard, we're going to need your help. You and I have talked about this. There should be that compilation, and you absolutely need to be involved in the consulting on that to help make sure everything's covered there. Because when that happens, that needs to be definitive. The limiting there's two limiting factors on that one. One is I want it to include everything. And I need to get some rights still that don't exist. That I have a verbal and handshake agreement for that, but it's not papered yet. And that needs to be papered. So that's one limiting factor. And then two, it's finding a slot with Gearbox Publishing so that all that can happen. But if you were to ask Steve right now, like if you were to email Steve, Richard, and say, like, how many times over the last year has Randy brought up that we need to make this happen? It's
right.
All the fucking time. All the fucking time. It's just, you know, we have to slide it in, but we can't slide it in until we have the rights in hand. So there's a little chicken and egg here, but it's imminent. And then like, you're welcome to call and you'll get the answer. But once that rights part is solved, then you will be getting the call. And it sounds like Frederik, I should be calling.
Once the rights part is solved, what are your thoughts about that Hail to the King collection that we had planned for Android devices?
I think my attitude there is the same as it was. If you want to do that, like, you can, and we can work out a license for you to do that. Frankly, I don't think it's going to do very much. I also think that there's I don't think that people that really want to play Duke are going to have the best experience with thumbs on a screen, on a glass screen on their phones.
I was mostly planning on things like Amazon's Fire TV devices. They've sold millions of the things.
Well, and if you want to do that, I'm for it, and we can absolutely work. Like I told you, I could give you a license for that, but I don't think you're going to get a great result there. It's not going to become the biggest thing ever. There's just not many users looking for that content, but there's no reason why that shouldn't exist, particularly since you've done most of the heavy lifting. The other thing too is you might like devices that would run it that have a joystick are much better than devices where you have to do the virtual sticks on screens. So, you know, if you want to re-engage and work out a license for that, I'm happy to do that. But just, you know, from a quality point of view, you do want to be concerned. Like, if we're really thinking long game about this franchise, there might be someone that's heard of Duke Nukem, that's never played a Duke Nukem game before, and because they notice the thing available on their phone, they download it, and they don't really have a great experience because it's kind of this old game that was never designed to be played on the phone. Playing any first-person shooter with a phone as an interface is kind of shitty, frankly.
Well, I mean, we got the controls to the point where you could beat the entire game on at least come get some. At least come get some.
I believe you can, but I'll tell you what. We'll work out the license but I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying, like, you want to have a successful result, right? So
absolutely.
One thing we can do is we have a user research team, and it's possible that you might not be totally objective about what that experience is like. And it's also possible that I might not be totally objective about what that experience is like. User research is a good path to help us. We could agree on what the test is, and we can get real people in front of it and see what the response is, and then see how we feel about that.
For what it's worth, my 6-year-old still has an old beta build of it on his tablet. He plays with the parental lock on, and he can beat the levels.
That's great. There's a difference between can you beat the levels versus.
No, it's fun. It's fun.
This is the thing I really want to do, and
it's not a shit experience, is what I'm getting at.
As a consequence of my experience here, what do I think about the franchise? Right, like because one of the advantages Duke does have. For people that have heard of Duke but haven't played of it, one of the things that's in their mind is this was important to a lot of people. This was really big in its day, and it was really good in its day. And the worst thing we can do is prove that impression wrong, right? And frankly, a lot of this stuff doesn't hold up to a lot of gamers, particularly new gamers.
I absolutely agree with you there.
And you have to be careful about that, because if you're in your mind's eye, you think that the past was amazing, and you just can have that. But if you actually revisit the past and you learn, oh, maybe it wasn't amazing after all, then you're actually in a worse position.
I think we should probably move on to the next thing.
Okay.
Randy, one other thing, and it's completely unrelated to this, is I just quickly spotted it. I know the story behind this, but I don't think most of the fans do. Just before you guys acquired the Duke IP, what was Duke Begins, and
well, let's see. Let me think about that for a second. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I will be violating any confidentiality commitments I've made if I talk about that. What has been shared publicly is that there was an arrangement between Gearbox and Take-Two and 3D Realms prior to 3D Realms shutting down, and there was some effort going on for it. I think that's all public, but I think, and by the way, I love, like, that was super exciting, and I love that, and I'd love for something to happen there, but I do not want to, I don't want to violate any commitments I've made for confidentiality. So I will have to go revisit that agreement, and probably also Now that said, what I can say is Gearbox has spent a lot of time thinking about the origin story of Duke Nukem. Some of that thinking is derived from when I was part of the 3D Realms team and sitting around with guys like Richard and Alan and Keith and George and dreaming this shit up. And I've got a pretty good treatment. There's a whole bunch of treatments, but I've got there's a really freaking great one that was developed that I think there's a chance it probably won't ever make it into a video game. It could, but it might actually end up as film stuff.
Was this the one that was the Duke Nukem backstory that was developed back in the 3D Realms days? Part of some of our archives, we have almost a Bible of all 3D Realms games going back to billion years ago in the galaxy, and then
You're talking about Tom Hall's work.
The one Tom Hall developed for the whole universe and so on.
There was a period where Tom Hall tried to put every single Apogee game into the same universe.
That's the one we have.
I think that only existed in Tom Hall. He wrote that down, but nobody else ever really. We all thought, "Holy crap, you're a madman! This is awesome."
I should say no way.
We have it. We've seen
no one
it.
else in the studio is using that as a guiding light for their work.
Oh, that's good.
Tom is a goddamn genius. I
think it even had Command and Conquer worked in there. Other things that weren't even.
The story was that, and I think it also showed what games they played at the time. When I read this treatment, once Bombshell is announced, wow, that's cool, Bombshell, and then GDI and not. is there. And Duke Nukem visits a Nod base, and it's like, what the fuck is going? What's
Yeah.
Now
That was Tom just being awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't know what percentage of the 3D Realms developers considered that canonical. I know, I read it and I absolutely loved it, but I also thought to myself, if anything I need to do is stop because this exists, I'm not going to care about this. So I don't think what I'm talking about is a real what was Duke's childhood like?
Yeah.
And how did he become who he is?
You can make Duke's childhood into Rad Rodgers.
Yeah. And we there's a really good treatment on that was developed. A lot of people were involved in that, and I thought it was fucking outstanding. And you know, and everybody, not everybody, there are a lot of people that were pitched on that, and it was iterated through that, and it held scrutiny to a lot of the right players. But it may have at one point been the thing that was going to end up as a video game. But I think at this stage, its best hope is that it might be part of what later evolves into a film.
Cool. All right. I think we pretty much covered all the main points in this document. I can see the guy in the background there also marking up everything that we've been going through here. I think Robert, Richard, do you agree? I think we pretty much covered most of this.
Yeah, there's
Frederik. How's Rad Rodgers doing? Like, where is it at, and where is it going?
Rad Rodgers is it was acquired by THQ.
Okay. Has it been published, or is it still in development?
It's we're developing an extended version of it, so it's going out in I think early 2018.
You have something there. I really wish good success there. I'm really impressed by what I saw so far. THQ Nordic is a good partnership there. I would absolutely, when you get on the other side of that, if you do want to do a Duke game along those lines and can get funding from Nordic, normally you'd go like 10–15% for a licensing fee. Like, I'll give you a sub 5% licensing fee if you can find a way to finance it for that, because I like that whole side scroller angle, and I like what you're doing there.
Yeah,
I think it'd be really cool, and it would be kind of low cost, and it wouldn't. You could do anything you want there, and it wouldn't affect bigger picture.
It basically be like we've been talking about this internally as well, about creating the stylized, almost if you took the classic Duke Nukem 2, the big head and the huge haircut, and if you took the classic Duke Nukem 2, the big head and the huge haircut, and like the stylized character, like in Rad Rodgers.
Yeah.
Made an over-the-top Duke story out of that. That could be a ton of fun.
Yeah.
We've been talking about this, you and I as well, previously, and it's something that after Rad Rodgers is done in 2018, we should definitely resume those conversations.
Up to you, but just it's totally on the table as far as I'm concerned, and I'd be thrilled by that. So,
there's one more thing.
I might be able to help with North American publishing if THQ Nordic isn't that strong there, and I think they probably would need that help. But or if any other partner you ended up with, and we could do worldwide as well, but they might already have their paths for Europe.
Yeah, they're really good in Europe. They were previously called Nordic Games.
Do they do their own publishing, or do they use a Coach Media or somebody?
They do full publishing, worldwide publishing. They acquired THQ when they went bankrupt. They acquired.
There's like Salesforce, there's distribution and all that. I wonder if they have their own people or not. Yeah,
they do pretty good. They just announced Darksiders 3, which is their big main title. But they have a pretty good catalog of games. But they're very strong in Europe. That's the main market. But definitely, if they're interested, I'll try and set up something between you guys.
Cool.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention. Before we go offline, I just wanted to mention Stephen Hornback, who passed away late last year. I know his wife indicated she might be watching this stream, so I just wanted to read a quote from his obituary, if that's okay with everybody. So Hornback is best known for his work at Apogee Software, which later created the publishing label 3D Realms and went on to adopt it as its preliminary brand on everything from Duke Nukem 2 to Rise of the Triad to Shadow Warrior. And Stephen also claimed responsibility for designing the original 3D Realms logo, which is still in use today. So just wanted to say rest in peace and recognize Stephen, who passed away of a heart attack at the young age of 62 late last year.
Stephen was great, and I considered him a friend and an ally as when we worked together at 3D Realms. And you know, he was cool. He was really, you know, he would just you know, focus and get the stuff done. He also was cool as, you know, there was some pioneering stuff going on back then in taking physical photographs of things and taking that as a source and turning it into sprites and models and things. We did not have the 3D packages that we have today, but we were trying to represent things in 3D, right? So Stephen would take a photograph, like one of us would just stand there and we do this, and then he would like turn that into he'd take each photograph and turn that into the rotations of the sprites that he was building, and they would become, you know, caricatured sprites. A lot of that work in Rise of the Triad.
Yeah, Joe found a VHS tape recently of Stephen doing these sessions where you have Joe in his chair and you have George being the heavy guy and so on, and you have the monk costume on, and it's really, really cool.
Yeah, that was a fun process, and Stephen was really good.
Some of Stephen's work has actually been a huge inspiration for the art in the new build game that we have coming out.
That's cool.
It's almost like a spiritual successor to Duke 3D in a lot of ways, and we've taken a good, strong look at a lot of Stephen's work when designing some of it, and yeah, it was really unfortunate when we heard that he passed. The same with James Story. He was another artist on Duke Nukem 3D who passed a few years back.
You know, James, when I left 3D Realms, I joined Billy Zelznak and his brother startup Rebel Boat Rocker, and we contracted with James. James did our first texture set for all the materials that we had on the game we were working on at Rebel Boat Rocker. And James was an awesome talent. I mean, I still every once in a while see on shitty old websites like that, like a GIF of his little klaxon thing that he made.
Yeah, the little spinning red light.
And I'll also say, you know, when the guys were working on the assets in World Tour, like we talked about James a lot, you know, because he did all the weapons in Duke 3D, and most of the weapons. I think there was a couple of them Martel worked on when he joined, but
I think Stephen Hornback did the hands.
Yes, yeah, Hornback did the hands. James
Story did the paint overs of the actual model renders and the photographs.
Yeah.
And the shotgun was George's, I think.
Yeah, and even in Shadow Warrior, the weapons in Shadow Warrior were like, come on, and then James got involved, and holy shit, they got really good.
That's why they were the king of the building game. They owned that market, you know, before anything like Tech and Unreal Engine and so on. Holy cow, the building games were magic. A lot, Shadow Warrior and Doom and so on.
So James was from UK, and 3D Realms really screwed him up. Brought him out to Texas, you know, to work out of the Garland office for a while. None of those guys knew anything about like immigration or anything like that. So he's basically a visitor, but he's working. He screwed up his whole visa status for a while because he didn't do that right. And he wouldn't eat anything. We had to take him to like Long John Silver's like 3 times a day because the only thing that he would eat was fish and chips. I love James, man. That guy would make me laugh. He was so great. But we actually worked together for a while after 3D Realms, both at Rebel Boat Rocker, and I think he even did some stuff for us at Gearbox. I think he actually did some materials for us that got into Half-Life when we started Gearbox. James was awesome. That crushed me, man. The other one was William Scarboro.
Yeah, that was we had in Rise of the Triad, we had a memorial for him as well.
When he and I redesigned the Prey editor, I would sit in his office and we'd work on it, and we would just crank the Beastie Boys full blast, annoying everybody else. And he was rad, dude. That guy was smart.
Were you there? Were you there around the old Prey days?
Oh yeah, I was the first level designer on Prey.
We might have, like, you know, going through the old material, we had the old Prey builds, so we've been trying to talk a bit about that.
There was a period when I joined, Doze and Document and those guys are still on the project, but then I got pulled really quickly to help ship the pack. But I was kind of like one hand in Prey and, you know, working with Tom on the designs and stuff. And then all the Ritual guys left. They were Hypnotic. They all left. And Tom went with John to found Ion Storm. So Tom Holland Romero started Ion Storm. And it was just William and I for like 3 months. And there was nobody, it was just William and I. We were the only 2 people on the Prey project. And
was that back in like 96, 97 or something like that?
No, that was late 96, early 97.
Yeah.
And then we hired, what was his name? Paul.
Paul Chituma.
Yeah, he was a journalist.
Yeah.
I'm like, George, you sure, man?
Here's the journalist.
I really like the guy. I'm like, all right.
I think we might have played some of your old levels then.
And Paul took kind of the work that we had done on the Predator, and what's funny is when we were first, this is so stupid, just to reminisce, portals were not a gameplay mechanic. Portals in technology were a method for dealing with culling that was different from BSP. Back in the day, software rendering, you know, it's expensive. The computers are slow. And to do real-time 3D graphics was fucking hard, right? So the premise of Portals was about an expert system, basically a level designer creating this window where we define, if you're on this side of the window, here's the stuff you can see. And if you're on that side of the window, here's the stuff you can see. And everything else you can just throw away. You don't have to worry about rendering it. And it was kind of an expert systems way of doing culling.
That's also how the build engine works. Each wall is a portal.
Kind of. I mean, they're called that, but it's a little bit different technique in terms of like how the software thinks about it. And it was also like Bill automates its PBS, right?
Well, yeah, you don't have to define them manually.
Yeah, you don't do any definition of it yourself. This is sort of an expert systems way of it.
In Max Payne, you have to define them manually. That's
so here was the one thing we got from Paul. He wrote the story in PC Gamer, right? He heard about the pitch about portals, and his mind did this work where he turned it into a game design feature instead of a way of just getting away with rendering the scene. And then it became a gameplay feature. And unfortunately, the 3D Realms version of Prey never got to exist. But I designed puzzles that were identical to puzzles that ended up in the game Valve called Portal.
We've talked so much about this.
And Paul designed a lot of that stuff too. He actually proved to be a pretty clever guy. Before he came in, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? We're hiring a journalist. And after I was like, yeah, that was a good decision. It's actually not bad.
There's a tech demo from the game where there's a video as well from, it was an interview with Paul from Infinite Megahertz that shows off the destruction and the portal technology. This was in mid '98, and when they show the portals, you have an orange and a blue portal, and he shoots himself through it and drops a mine and so on. All of that it looks one-to-one to what Portal then became.
Yeah. And it frustrates me that design wasn't realized. But you know, I'm glad that Valve got around to it. Here's the other hypothesis that I have. I'm pretty confident that the pitch of Prey and that era of Prey planted the seeds for the team that made Narvacular drop. Like that was their best way of trying to realize what that design could led to. And I think a lot of minds could have gone there. I mean, we were certainly going there, but they did it. And then of course, our Back to the Drop ended up becoming Kim Swift and those folks ended up joining Valve and making Portal with the Valve team. And how awesome did that turn out to be?
Yeah.
I saw on the feed here somebody bringing up the John St. John stuff again. If John's willing, somebody wants to take a shot at directing. I mean, there's a cost to it.
I actually did with that's a completely different discussion. But we had a talk just before this call. We talked about John's performance and the brief time we got to work with him for like 6 months before. We got into trouble, but that's a different story. I actually spoke with some of the Duke guys, and they talked about this story about John grinding his teeth. So I remember when we got on a call with him for him to do his lines, I asked him, can you grind your teeth? And he's like, why should I do that? Like, just try and grind your teeth. And I think we spent like an hour or so trying to nail the performance, but his reaction afterwards was that it's been so long that someone told him how to do his job that he actually has kind of forgotten. But that was solely based on someone, I think, on the forums mentioning that the reason he sounded that way in the first Duke 3D was because he was grinding his teeth.
You gotta grit your teeth and talk like this.
Yeah, that's part of it. I did not direct him in World Tour. I directed him a couple of times during Duke. I directed him on he did the voice for a bunch of characters in Half-Life Opposing Force. I've worked with him a bunch over the years. I did not direct him on World Tour, but I don't know if that's the biggest deal ever. I think what I insisted on World Tour though was that we had the option to just play the original sounds back or the new stuff, and people could choose. Of course, the new episode you only have the new stuff because those were new lines that didn't exist back then. The guy. He's a human, so some it might you could say, oh, it's all direction. I don't know if that's the case. I think some of this is there's also like when it's played at its lower bit rate through the old engine, it just sounds that way, and we might never recapture that again because our microphones are better now.
Yeah, that's the rate made you think what the voice might be like, and
yes, our brain is doing some of the work when we listen to the voiceover in Duke 3D because the technology was not doing it all for us. Today, the technology is giving us a more pure sound of what was actually recorded, and our brain's doing less of the work. And each of us might actually be hearing different things when we listen to the original sound. That's why different people have different opinions about how it sounds.
Well, imagine the Marines in Half-Life. Without the distortion, they wouldn't be as badass as they are today.
Oh, totally.
This is completely unrelated, Randy, but I just had a thought, and I can't help it. And I apologize for barging in, but I can't stop thinking about Duke Forever 2001, and I know that there are legal hurdles to clear with 2K before any of the community can see it. But as far as the stuff that Fred has done, could he show it to us behind closed doors even?
I mean, behind closed doors, I can't stop anything, and it's not my risk. Please don't fucking tell me about it, though, because then it becomes
I can't help it.
Someone in the chat had a question about.
Let's do this. Let's all agree to work together, especially with Frederik and Gobiel. When I get clearance on the rights issue, and we're putting that package together. Whoa, what happened? Can you still hear us? Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
If I'm still there, great. If not,
yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
We're trying to bring it back. Something happened. What happened?
I think it went to sleep.
The TV.
The TV, not the
What?
computer.
That's possible?
That's really weird that it
Seriously?
I think the
We
TV
just hit the 2-hour mark. That's probably why.
Oh gosh.
Someone in the chat had a question about the source code to World Tour. Since it was based on open source.
I can't tell if you're hearing me because I can't.
Yeah.
They can hear you.
You hear me?
PC equipment's still working.
I'm hoping.
We're gonna find out here in a minute.
Yep.
Am I live?
Hey, okay, cool.
Okay. Wow, we just lost everything. Let's all agree to once I get the license sorted, that we'll collaborate on how to do it right, so to speak.
Okay.
And I absolutely hope to look to GoBL to kind of outline here's what needs to be in it, and here's how you do it right, and we'll temper that against how much we have to spend on this.
Hopefully nothing. Hopefully there will be no cost to you. I mean, based on what has indicated.
I wish that was the case, but you can't, like, even if you have something finished, it costs something just to deliver it, just to ship it.
I mean, we've already developed so much of it ported to other platforms, so there's a start.
Yeah. And if you want to talk to me offline too about your mobile thing, I'm super hyped on any platform that has a joystick that will work on. As far as cell phone goes, we should do some focus tests, and all of us should look at the results before we decide how hard to push that.
And somebody in the chat had a question about the source code to World Tour, since it was based on the GPL, the source release that 3D Realms published in 2003. Technically, that means that the source code to World Tour has to be made available, so they were asking about that.
I don't think that's true. I think I don't know. I mean, I have to check with the Nerve guys, but I think some things might have been inspired by, but I don't think there's any actual code from that. Also, secondly, it doesn't matter. I think that would apply to everyone who does not own the IP. Like those kinds of rules don't apply to the people that release them. But again, I'm not that guy. I don't want to get in a semantic argument about that. I'm going to spend 0 seconds thinking about that.
Okay.
And I also don't think that source code is particularly valuable. So it's not like I don't think it needs to be held back, but I don't know what's the value in it getting out? Like, is there something somebody thinks is in there that they really need to have access to, or else they can't do the thing they want to do?
I think mostly they want it so that the changes can be used to better support the World Tour content in like source ports and whatnot.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I mean, what I can do there is ask Mike Wardwell, who produced the title, to see how the developers would feel about that if any of them have any spare cycles.
Okay.
When you get like shit, when Charlie decided I'm going to be the guy to release the source code for Duke 3D, and I'm going to help that happen. First, he got permission, and then Duke Forever probably lost a year because he decided to do that work.
There was also the question of that Xbox Live Arcade version being directly based on a port that was downloaded from the internet, and so that's definitely GPL work. So, what do we do about getting the source code to that released?
I don't know. I don't think we even have that. I have no idea where that.
I gave that source code to you guys when you guys were on the World Tour. Yeah.
I would honestly recommend that, like any legal things, that we probably talk about that outside of this call, like between you, Robert, and the source codes, and
sure.
Just to not dive into too many details that the fans probably don't care that much about. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think those are big issues. If there's some value to that, there's some inexpensive or cheap way for that kind of stuff to happen like that. It's just I don't spend a lot of time worrying about things like that because I'm like really big picture. I have to worry about Duke on the franchise level, and the handful.
I would certainly be willing to donate the time needed to prepare those for release.
Cool. Well, let's do this offline. Why don't you start an email thread with me, and then we'll see if we can get we'll see if we can get enough attention on our side so that can be like an officially sanctioned effort.
Okay.
I think there's probably a legal agreement, and then we'll probably want at least a producer part-time to kind of be able to kind of connect dots, especially if we're talking about the world tour source as well. The other thing too, I'm not sure with the 360 source, the live source, like there's obligations with Microsoft. I'm not sure if there's even rights to release that.
I know that we would have to remove anything that was like directly a part of their SDK, things of that nature.
So and I don't want to be accountable if there's any mistakes made on that. So because my livelihood does depend on us being developers and officially licensed.
It's sort of like when id released the original Doom source and they had to rip out the entire sound system because they had licensed it from someone else.
Yep. Yeah. And that's effort. That's effort to do that. And you have to, like, John took the time to do that work himself because he knew that if he got it wrong, it was his ass. So it's my ass if and everyone's livelihoods who I'm responsible for here if Microsoft goes sideways because we did something wrong. Fortunately, my experience with the first parties is when you get 2 generations behind a console platform, they tend to not really care as much about what happens. But that's getting muddy, right? Like there's all that catalog stuff being monetized on the current platforms from even 2 generations ago. So even that's getting harder. So I think there'd have to be a lot of care for that, so as not to get good-natured people in trouble through simple oversights.
Certainly.
Randy, I think you're on the finishing line. Is there anything you would like to ask us or the fans, or it's something you'd love to know?
One of the things that's interesting to me is there's like what's fascinating is when we tend to get fixated on these things which everyone gets fixated on their issue, and I love that because it's evidence of a deep attachment and commitment to a brand. But it's also like a double-edged sword that's kind of strange, right? Because you have the people that should, by every respect, care about Duke the most, that seem like they might be the first in line to really cause harm to Duke. Like right now, for example, let's say I don't know what Duke Nukem is, but I've heard about it. Or let's say I'm a new person, and I might be like 11 years old, and my dad says, man, I remember when I was in college, and Duke Nukem was the best game I ever played. And you're 11-year-old, like, what is this? And you go on the internet and you search for Duke, and maybe you find Duke4.net, and so you decide to go check it out, and you go onto the forum, and what you discover is just a bunch of bitching and complaining and hate. You're out. You're out. You're not going to become part of that community. And you're like, what the? And then you're not merely out for that community, but you're out for the franchise. I bought a bicycle. Years ago. I thought, you know what? When I was younger, I used to like to ride my bike around the neighborhood, and I bought a bicycle, and I thought I'm going to ride the bike. And I went online and I found that there's like this particular brand, there was this place, there's a community of people, these bike people. And I was curious, like, oh, maybe there's some cool things I can get for my bike, or maybe there's some cool tips I could learn. And so I found a forum and I went on there and I like opened up the first thread. And it was just people bitching about like, why did they choose this aluminum company to make the frickin' pivoter thing? And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, and I was out. And not only was I out of that community, I kind of didn't even want to ride the bike. And
I just want to come out and say that most of the content on Duke4.net is people creating stuff for Duke Nukem 3D. And
that's the good side of it. That's what you want in your forums, right?
Unfortunately, inherent to every community, there will always be people who may have constructive things to say, and there will always be people who can never be satisfied. But
Yeah, that's cool.
if I may speak for the website and the community, I think that we very much appreciate that you've put this time and made yourself available over 2 hours now to have this live stream, to have this discussion, to answer our questions. And I really hope that this will exemplify that Gearbox has been and is willing to work with the community, and that hopefully there will be less complaints. And if someone is not happy with something, perhaps the most constructive way to raise that issue would be to do it in civil discourse and to engage in a civil and in a very normal dialogue with everybody else on the forums, instead of just complaining and shutting people down or speaking negatively about people who I think everyone here loves Duke Nukem and wants the best for the IP.
Well, Robert, how many times have you seen someone do something like this? Like that's also what I'm realizing. You don't see many CEOs of big game developers sit down and do this for the fans, especially not on, we don't have a deadline. We can sit here, as far as I know, until the day is over down at Gearbox Software. We have Randy here, and we'll be able to talk to him, and we'll be able to ask freely. Like I don't think that alone shows way more respect for the community than most people would originally expect from Gearbox, and I think that's a huge step, definitely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I have to say to you, Randy, is that if you're buying that bike now on Duke 4, I hope that you'll want to buy it even more. And that goes for everybody else.
Well, it's up to the community itself to decide how it wants to present itself, because every post is not merely an engaged interaction between the people that are all there, but it's also a message to the people that might show up. And I think if your forum is like every other forum on the internet, there's probably more people looking at things than actually participating in things.
Certainly.
You also have a good point, Randy, because I remember myself when I was, I think, around 10 years old, I became aware of Duke Nukem 3D, and back then Duke 4net didn't exist. That was 3D Realms, and for the first time since then, I found my old username, and Joe has it all archived. So I found my own threads from back then, and they were hysterical. First of all, I didn't know how to write English. I was 10 years old, so it was terrible. I was the biggest noob in the world. I was trying to make this level in Build Engine, and the people answering my retarded questions didn't start a flame war or anything and talk trash about me. They were literally just trying to help out. They were good.
Awesome. That's what a community should be. And look what happened as a result. You exist.
And I saw, after I got the first 1 or 2 messages, my next was, hey, do you guys have ICQ? I would love some friends who like to hear. And they were like, yeah, take my ICQ number. And then
I still have ICQ.
But that's the experience. I'd love to see someone who's 11 years old who wants to see what Duke Nukem is for the first time. That's the experience, and I gotta give it to you, Randy. Like, I kind of agree to some extent, because if that happened today, if someone went on Duke 4net, no offense, and wrote, hey guys, how do I do XYZ, some stupid retarded question to any hardcore Duke fan, he would most likely just get trash talk from the community, because hey, why don't you read the README, and why don't you read this first, and the introduction thread, and all these things. But in reality, those are the people that we need to count on. Those are the people that we need to bring into the community with a open hand and say, hey, it's awesome that you love Duke Nukem. We love it too. Hey, let me help you out.
I don't feel like people get trash talked for asking questions like that. I feel like when somebody replies and they're a total asshole, that other people reply and tell them to stop being an asshole. And generally, people will give them a link to the relevant information on, we have a whole wiki about Duke 3D editing and how to use build and all of that. And people tend to post links to that when people ask questions. And
yeah, I think generally it's just mainly when a community gets old enough and old enough without any new products like the Duke Nukem community, it also becomes more and more self-contained. It becomes this almost exclusive club. And that's the dangerous part about these types of communities. It becomes like an elitist community. Anyone who wants to come in might get shown the door because, hey, you're not an elitist like us, you're one of the new ones. I know that's not how it is, but that's how it might be perceived by someone new. Like when Randy bought this bike, he comes into this elitist community who knows everything about this. And Randy's basically scared off because, holy shit, I'm way too deep into, like, I'm just gonna, walk instead. But yeah.
Cool.
Do you guys have anything else?
I think it's been great. I think we've covered everything. I was looking at the polls and the question. I was looking at our notes. I just want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Austin, and thank you, Alyssa, and thank you, Richard and Fred, for putting time out of your days to have this discussion. And what we intend on doing is to put a condensed version of this Q&A into text format for everyone to refer to. I was just looking at an email that Austin sent me, and I think that's a great idea to kind of condense and summarize the discussion that we've been having for the past 2 hours for everyone to see. So thank you all again very much.
Hey, Yatta, that shirt, that's quite
Thank you. I got this in Las Vegas when I first met Randy in 2011 for the Duke Nukem Forever Las Vegas party.
I have from the swag tag I got back then.
2KPR had made a neon sign to help dress that place to make it look like Duke Nukem City. And that neon sign is currently hanging up in one of our rooms in our office. We have a pool table in there, we've got a bar, and we've got a poker table. And we've got, the walls are covered with all the photos of Duke Nukem and the impossible places like him on the
That's
moon.
true. I would love to come and visit and see that one day.
And it's awesome. Maybe we should take some pictures of that room.
Yeah.
We would love to. If you guys could take some pictures for everyone to see, we could post it up on the website for sure. That would be nice.
Just a tour, just like grab a phone and just go for a tour. That would be awesome.
Thanks for tolerating me with my fidget cube.
You still haven't solved it. All this, you've had 2 hours to solve it, Randy. What's going on?
Oh,
you solved it.
I was just waiting for the climax there.
I want to take one last second to shill my new game coming out on the Build engine. It's from 3D Realms. It's called Ion Maiden. Haven't announced the name anywhere before now. If you like Duke 3D, you will like it.
It's Bombshell 3D, basically. We can say that, right?
Please buy it.
That's awesome.
It's basically what Bombshell should have been.
Randy, I will send you a clip reel later.
Okay, cool. Right on. And send me an email about those other topics.
Okay, we'll do.
I'm really crunching right now, and I've got some things on Monday and Tuesday. So if I get the email today, I'll probably respond over the weekend. If not, I might not respond until Wednesday. Yeah, let's get on some of that stuff.
Sure.
All right,
Cool.
I'll send.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys, and yeah, have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
All right, we'll do this again sometime. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you all very much.
All right.
Have a great day, guys.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.